move that hand 1 inch closer to my face, and I promise you, this compound will never be the same again.
3 wives stand watching. Not one of them moves to stop it, because not one of them wants it stopped. Victoria has been the undisputed head of that compound for 15 years. She has raised 4 sons, buried a husband, and broken 3 daughters-in-law so completely that they have forgotten what their own voices sound like. She is not a woman people challenge. She is not a woman people look in the eye for too long. She is not a woman anyone has ever spoken to the way Precious just spoke to her. And yet here is this woman, standing in the middle of the compound, hand not shaking, eyes not dropping, voice not apologizing. Nobody moves, nobody breathes. This is the story of how it gets here, and what happens after. Victoria has 4 sons. Pascal is the oldest, then Praise, then Promise, and then Prosper, the last born, the quietest, the one who has always watched his mother more carefully than the others. When Paul, their father, dies 15 years ago, Victoria gathers all 4 boys around her and tells herself it is love. Her sons believe her. They have no reason not to. She has a system and it works. No wife cooks in that kitchen without permission. No wife visits her own family without informing Victoria at least 3 days ahead. When a son and his wife disagree, the son comes to Victoria first and Victoria decides how it ends. She controls the household money, the visiting hours, the sleeping schedules. She calls it keeping the family together. What she does not call it is what it actually is. She also controls the money in ways that go deeper than anyone realizes. When the sons receive their salaries, Victoria knows the amounts. She has a household account each son contributes to, an amount she sets herself. Wives who receive money from their own families find that the money has a way of being redirected before they can use it. A request from Victoria arrives for something urgent, a repair, a family need, something with a reason good enough that refusing it would look selfish. It is elegant. It means the wives are always slightly short, always slightly dependent, always slightly needing something only the compound can provide. Pearl is Pascal's wife. She arrives 5 years ago as a cheerful woman who laughs easily and says what she thinks. Within 8 months of living in the compound, the laughing stops. She learns that having opinions in Victoria's presence costs too much. She learns to apologize for things she has not done and to read the temperature of every room before she enters. Patience marries Praise 3 years ago. She survives by becoming invisible. She cooks, cleans, answers questions in one word, and makes herself so small that sometimes a full day passes and nobody remembers she was in the room. Purity comes in fighting. She arrives with fire and says exactly what she thinks. She lasts 3 months before Victoria breaks her. The day Purity tries to leave, bags packed, standing by the car, Victoria goes to Promise's room and weeps. Promise comes outside looking broken and stands in front of his wife and says, "Please, she is my mother," just those 4 words. And Purity understands she is not fighting a woman. She is fighting 15 years of careful programming. She puts her bag down. She goes back inside. She never tries again. After that day, Victoria calls all 3 wives to the kitchen and says, without looking at Purity, "Some women come into a family wanting to tear it down. A good wife builds. We do not have room for the other kind here." Pearl stares at the pot she is stirring. Patience wipes a counter that is already clean. Purity stands with a wooden spoon in her hand and feels something fold up inside her chest and go somewhere she cannot reach. She never tries to reach it again. And then there is the other thing, the thing beneath the system. Deep in the market, past the fabric sellers and the pepper grinders, there is a small dark room where an old woman sits surrounded by things Victoria does not ask the names of. Victoria has been going there since before Pascal's wedding. She goes before each wife arrives. The old woman gives her powders, small parcels, liquids, and instructions that are always specific and always work. As long as her sons live on that compound soil, their hearts stay with her. Any woman who tries to pull them away finds her own will loosening, her own mind softening, until submission is the only thing that feels natural. 3 wives, 3 times it never fails. When Prosper comes home one evening talking about a woman he met at a work conference, Victoria listens and smiles. But inside, she is already thinking about her next visit to the market. His name for this woman is Precious. He says it the way people say things they are afraid to say too loudly in case they disappear. Over the following weeks, he mentions her often. He laughs more than usual. He comes home earlier. Victoria watches all of this with careful eyes. "Bring her to visit," Victoria tells him one afternoon. "Let me see who my son is talking about." Prosper brings Precious to the compound the following Saturday, just for a few days, just to visit. Precious arrives in simple clothes with natural hair and steady eyes. She greets Victoria warmly, bends her knee slightly in respect, and says, "Thank you for having me, Ma." Victoria hugs her and tells her she is welcome, but her eyes are already moving, already measuring, already looking for the crack. The next 3 days, Victoria watches Precious like she is watching an exam. She notices everything: how Precious enters a room, how she sits, whether she eats with confidence or nervousness, whether she offers to help in the kitchen without being asked, whether she asks questions about the compound, the property, the sons. Victoria listens to every conversation Precious has with Prosper from the corridor. She finds almost nothing to use. Precious is polite but not fearful. On the first morning, she wakes before 6 and comes to ask Pearl where the kitchen things are kept. Pearl shows her. Precious thanks her and starts washing the breakfast dishes before Pearl can get to them. Pearl stands watching and does not know what to do with her hands. She asks Patience where she is from. Patience answers in the usual 2 words she gives everyone. Precious asks a follow-up question. Patience answers that too. Precious asks another. And before Patience realizes it, she is talking about her mother's town and the food there and a memory from when she was 12, talking the way she used to talk before this compound taught her that talking took up space that was not hers to fill. She stops herself suddenly. Precious says, "That sounds like a beautiful place. Do you get to go back often?" And Patience says, "Not as often as I would like." The two of them sit with that for a moment. On the second afternoon, Precious sits outside the kitchen with Purity. Nobody can hear what they say, but something Precious says makes Purity laugh. A real laugh, the full kind, from somewhere genuine. It comes out before Purity can catch it. She covers her mouth immediately, eyes going to the main house door, face tightening. Victoria is standing in her doorway. She watches that laugh and makes a note of it. On the second evening, Victoria tests Precious at dinner. She passes the pepper and says, "We do not waste things in this house. Take only what you will finish." Everyone at the table knows exactly where it lands. Precious looks at the pepper. She takes a small amount. She says, "Thank you, Ma. My aunt raised me the same way. She always said waste is the first sign of someone who does not know the value of what they have." She says it without looking up, without a trace of anything except a woman making conversation. Victoria has no answer for that. On the last evening of the visit, Victoria arranges to sit alone with Precious after dinner. She waits until Prosper goes to make a phone call. She leans back in her chair and says, "Tell me about your mother." "She passed away when I was young," Precious says. "My aunt raised me." "And your aunt, what kind of woman is she?" "A strong woman, quiet but strong." "Does she believe a wife should be close to her husband's family?" Precious looks at Victoria. She believes a wife should be a good person. She says everything else follows naturally from that. Victoria nods slowly. She lets a pause sit between them. Then she says, "My son is very attached to you, I can see it. I just want to make sure you understand what kind of family you are coming into. We are very close here. The sons and their mother have a particular way of doing things. A wife who understands that way is a blessing. A wife who fights it brings confusion to everyone." She pauses. "You understand what I am saying?" Precious holds her gaze and says, "I understand perfectly, Ma." A small, steady smile. "I look forward to being part of the family." Victoria smiles back. But something in Precious's eyes when she says, "I understand," perfectly sits in Victoria's chest for the rest of the night like a stone she cannot move. After Precious leaves, Victoria goes straight to the market woman. She sits down and says, "Prepare something for a new wife. She is different from the others, make it stronger." The market woman asks questions. Victoria describes Precious, the steadiness, the calm, the way her presence seems to settle a room instead of tighten it, the way that laugh came out of purity. The market woman prepares something and hands it over. Victoria takes it home and does not think about Precious again. She has handled this 3 times. This will be the 4th. 3 months later, Prosper and Precious have their wedding. A proper church wedding in the city with family on both sides, white dress and all. Victoria sits in the front pew in her best fabric and her best smile. She hugs Precious at the reception and tells her she looks beautiful. She means the dress. She is already planning. After the wedding, Prosper and Precious move into the compound as husband and wife. Prosper has his own section of the house. A room, a small sitting area, a private entrance. But they are still inside the compound walls, still under the same roof as Victoria. That is all she needs. The first night, Victoria adds something to Precious's food. The next morning, Precious is in the kitchen before 6, moving around without a care, singing something low to herself. Pearl stands in the doorway of the main kitchen watching her and feels something she cannot name. It is the feeling of watching someone do the thing you have forgotten how to do. Victoria tries again 3 days later. A small wrapped parcel under the mattress in Prosper's room, placed carefully while the room is empty. She waits for the bad dreams, the confusion, the irrational distance that always grows between a wife and her husband after the parcel is placed. Precious sleeps soundly. In the morning, she and Prosper are laughing before they even sit down to eat. A private joke, the kind that has a whole conversation inside it. Victoria goes to the market. She sits across from the old woman and explains that nothing is working. The old woman listens without speaking. Then she says, "Describe how this woman makes you feel when she is in the room." Victoria frowns. She thinks about it. "Like the room accepts her," she says slowly. "Like she walked in and the compound just opened for her." The old woman is quiet for a long time. Then she says, "Leave this one alone." "What do you mean, leave her alone? I paid you." "I know what you paid me." The old woman's voice is flat and final. "What is inside that woman did not come from me and cannot be touched by me. If you push her, what pushes back will not be her, and it will not be small." She stands up, which means the conversation is over. "Leave her alone and live your life. That is all I have for you." Victoria drives home, gripping the wheel. She tells herself the woman is losing her gift. She decides she will handle Precious herself. The first public move is at Sunday lunch. All 4 sons at the table, all 4 wives. Victoria looks at Precious's pot of stew and says loudly, "Who cooked this? Something is missing." She lifts the lid, smells it, puts it down. "Precious, is this yours?" "Yes, Ma," Precious says. "Ask Pearl to show you how we cook here. We have standards in this house." The table is quiet. Pascal keeps his eyes on his food. Praise reaches for his cup. Precious says pleasantly, "I would love to learn directly from you, Ma. Your sons talk about your cooking like it is the best thing they have ever eaten. The best place to learn is from the source herself." The table stays quiet, but it is a different quiet. Victoria has pushed and Precious has caught the push and returned it as a compliment so smoothly there is nothing to argue with. Victoria smiles and changes the subject. Her chest is tight. She tries another angle. She tells Prosper that Precious was speaking badly about Pearl in the kitchen. Prosper goes to Precious that evening. Precious says, "Let us call Pearl and discuss it together right now, the 3 of us." Pearl comes in confused and says nothing happened. Prosper looks at his mother differently after that day, not with anger, with something slower and harder to shake off. Victoria tells Praise that Precious has been asking whose name the compound property is registered in. Praise passes it to Prosper. Prosper sits on the edge of the bed and asks Precious about it. Precious looks at him. I asked your mother how long the family had lived here. She was showing me around when I first arrived. I asked a polite question. She pauses. You can ask her if you want. Prosper does not ask. He goes quiet. Precious lets him be quiet without pushing. She has a stillness that makes panic impossible around her. Victoria has always operated in the space where panic lives. She has no tools for stillness, and that absence unsettles her more than anything Precious has said out loud. Victoria starts knocking on her son's doors at night. 10 o'clock, 11, sometimes 11:30. She says she cannot sleep and wants company. Pearl comes out in her nightclothes and stands holding a cup of water while Victoria talks for an hour. Patience sits on the bench outside her door with her hands in her lap and her eyes somewhere far away. Promise comes out and leaves Purity alone in the room staring at the ceiling. One night she knocks on Prosper's door at 11. There is movement inside, then quiet. Prosper opens the door and looks at her. Mama, is something wrong? I could not sleep. I wanted to see my son. Prosper looks at her for a moment. Something moves across his face. Not irritation exactly. More like a man beginning to recognize a pattern he has never put a name to before. He says, Mama, it is almost midnight. Go and rest. I will see you in the morning. He closes the door. Victoria stands in the dark corridor alone. In 15 years, no son has ever closed a door on her. She stands there for a moment. Then she walks back to her room. She decides to end this on a Sunday afternoon when all 4 sons go to a family friend's house together. She walks into the compound and calls everyone out. Pearl comes quickly, wiping her hands. Patience comes from behind the kitchen. Purity comes from the side yard. All 3 stand before Victoria with their heads slightly down, hands in front of them. That posture. Years of learning folded into that posture. Where is Precious? Victoria asks. Pearl points toward Prosper's room. Precious, come out here. A moment passes. The door opens and Precious steps out in a simple house dress, hair loose, face calm. You called me, Ma. I have been watching you since the day you came into this compound. Victoria's voice carries no warmth now. You do not ask before you cook. You do not come to me before you make decisions. You look at me in a way that no daughter-in-law in this house has ever looked at me. Ma, I have not disrespected you. You are disrespecting me right now by talking back. Victoria steps forward. Do you know what happens when I correct someone in this house? They listen. They humble themselves, because they understand that respect is what holds a family together. She raises her hand. Every other time this has been enough, just the raising of it. Every daughter-in-law flinches, steps back, begins to cry. Precious does not move. She looks at the raised hand. Then she raises her eyes to Victoria's face. Move that hand 1 inch closer to my face, and I promise you, this compound will never be the same again. Victoria's voice breaks through. So you want to beat me? In my own house? I said it the day Prosper brought you here. I told his brothers you were not a good woman, and now you are threatening me in front of witnesses. I did not threaten you, Precious says. Her voice has not risen once. I warned you. There is a difference. Kneel down and apologize to me right now. I will not. Purity makes a sound she cannot fully swallow. She presses her lips together. Victoria turns to the other wives. You see this. You are my witnesses. Patience says, Ma, we were here the whole time. Precious did not do anything wrong. Her voice is shaking, but it keeps going. Victoria spins toward her. What? We saw everything, Patience says. She was standing there, that is all. Victoria looks at Pearl. Pearl's hands are clasped so tightly her knuckles have changed color. Her eyes are full of tears, but she does not look away. She nods once, slowly. Patience is right, Ma. Purity says nothing out loud, but she holds Victoria's gaze and does not look away. Victoria feels the ground move under her. These same women who have been kneeling and apologizing and disappearing for years. She has not seen this coming because she stopped seeing them as people who could change. She looks at Precious, and in that moment she sees something cross Precious's face that she cannot explain. It is not anger, not triumph, something older than both, something that reaches into the back of Victoria's memory like a cold hand. She turns and walks back to her room. She shuts the door. She sits on her bed and looks at her hands. That night she does not sleep. The following morning the sons return from their friend's house. They come in through the gate laughing, still talking about the evening, and that is when Precious moves. She comes out of her room and stands in the open courtyard where all four brothers can see her and says, "I need to tell all of you something, all four of you, right now." Prosper looks at her face and knows something serious is coming. He says, "What is it?" "Your mother has been going to a woman in the market," Precious says. "A woman who prepares things, powders and parcels. She has been doing it since before each of your wives arrived. She did it for Pearl. She did it for Patience. She did it for Purity, and she tried to do it for me." The courtyard goes quiet. Pascal looks at her. "What kind of things?" "Things placed in your rooms," Precious says. "Things added to food. Your mother has been using them to keep control over your wives, to keep all of you from thinking clearly." Praise shakes his head slowly. "That is a serious thing to say." "I know," Precious says, "so I am not asking you to take my word for it. Go and check your rooms, each of you. Check under your mattresses. Check the corners. Check places that are small and hidden, and ask your wives what they have found over the years but said nothing about because they were afraid." There is a long silence. The brothers look at each other. Prosper says quietly, "Go and check." They separate. The compound is so quiet in those minutes that the sound of drawers opening and furniture being moved is audible from outside. Pascal comes out first. He is holding a small parcel wrapped in dark cloth, tied with black thread. His face has no expression. Pearl comes out behind him, eyes down, holding his arm. Praise comes out next, holding a small corked bottle. Patience is behind him and says quietly, "I found two things over the years. I threw them away, but I never said anything because I did not know how to explain it." Promise comes out holding nothing. He looks at Purity. Purity says, "There was powder under our mattress in the first year. I swept it out." She pauses. "I thought I was imagining things." The four brothers stand in the compound looking at what is in their hands. Nobody speaks for a long time. Then Pascal says, "How did you know about this?" He is looking at Precious. "I went to find the woman in the market myself after your mother's things stopped working on me. The woman had already moved, but the trader next door remembered your mother coming. She described what your mother asked for each time and when." Precious pauses. "Once I knew what to look for, it made sense of a lot of things." Prosper looks at the parcel in Pascal's hand. He says quietly, "How long?" "Before every wedding," Precious says. "She went before Pearl's, before Patience's, before Purity's, and she went again after I visited before our wedding." Praise is very still. He says, "The bottle I found. There was one in our room in the first year. I thought Patience had bought something." He looks at Patience. "I never asked." Patience shakes her head. "I did not buy it. I threw it away and I prayed and I did not say anything because I did not have the words." Promise looks at Purity. Purity says, "I found the powder the second month we were here. I swept it into a cloth and buried it in the backyard. I never told you because you would not have believed me." Her voice is steady. Years of keeping it have made it very steady. "You would have asked your mother and she would have cried and you would have come back to me with an apology in your eyes and nothing changed." Promise says, "I would have believed you." Purity looks back at him. She does not say anything, but her face says clearly she is not sure that is true, and Promise understands that the nothing he found does not mean nothing was there. It means his wife carried it alone because she had learned that carrying things alone was safer. Something shifts in his face. At that moment, Victoria appears in her doorway. She has heard everything. She stands in the doorframe and her eyes move from son to son, and she sees in their faces that the thing she has spent 15 years building is coming down. She points at Precious. "You," her voice is shaking. "Everything you are saying is a lie. I am your mother. I have given everything for this family." "Mama," Prosper says, "I gave up everything for all of you, everything, and you are going to stand there and let this woman." "Mama, who is she? Who is she to come into this house and—" "That is enough." Pascal's voice is not loud. It is the opposite of loud. It is the voice of a man who has reached the bottom of something and found solid ground. The compound goes completely still. Victoria's chest is heaving. She looks at Precious and asks it directly, the question that has been burning in her since the first day. "Who are you? Who are you really?" Precious looks at her. And something changes. It is not sudden. It happens the way the sky changes before a storm, slowly, then all at once. The way Precious holds herself shifts. The way her eyes settle on Victoria carries a weight that does not belong to a young woman. It is the weight of something that has been waiting for a very long time and has finally been given permission to speak. Precious steps toward Victoria. One step, two, until she is close enough that only Victoria can hear what comes next. And then she speaks. "Blossom," she says, "your mother-in-law, the woman you made a widow of her own son while she was still alive." Victoria's back hits the doorframe. Her face drains. Precious's voice drops lower. It is still her voice, but something older is underneath it, pressed close, giving it a weight it did not carry this morning. "You remember me. I can see that you do. I was a small woman who brought garden eggs and crayfish when I came to visit my son. I never raised my voice. I never asked for much. I only wanted to see him." Victoria's hands find the wall behind her. "You told him lies about me," Precious continues, her voice barely above a whisper now. "You told him I said things I never said. You put distance between us, one small lie at a time, until he stopped calling, stopped visiting, stopped even thinking of me without guilt. You made a son forget his mother. And then when I fell sick and was lying in a clinic 4 hours away, fighting to breathe, waiting for his footsteps, you told him the road was not safe. You told him 1 week would not matter." A sound comes from Victoria, small, broken, not quite a word. "1 week mattered," Precious whispers. "I died in that clinic listening for him. I listened until there were no more hours left to listen, and I made a promise in those final hours that I would not rest, that I would find a way back, that I would wait however long it took for the right moment and the right vessel." She pauses. Her eyes hold Victoria's and do not let go. "I watched you, Victoria. I watched you take the very thing you did to me and do it to 3 other women. I watched you go to that market woman to use juju because you were too afraid to simply love your sons without conditions. You knew what you had done to me. Deep inside, you always knew. And that knowing drove you to try to control everything, because you understood better than anyone what it looks like when karma finishes its journey home." Victoria is shaking now. Her legs have found the doorframe because without it she would not be standing. "I came the day Prosper brought Precious here," the voice beneath the voice continues. "I saw something in her, a steadiness that was strong enough to carry what I needed to finish. She did not know I was there. She still does not know. She has just lived her life as herself, and I have moved alongside her, making sure that nothing your market woman prepared could touch her, making sure she had the protection she needed to stand in this compound and not be broken." She tilts her head slightly. "But it is finished now. Every wife in this compound is free. Every son can finally see what has been in front of him. The things you built to hold them are coming down. That is all I came for. That is enough." Victoria opens her mouth. No words come. "The curse you laughed at 30 years ago," Precious says, almost gently, "was never a curse. It was just the truth. What you do to others finds its way home. It always does. It just sometimes needs somewhere to go. Then something shifts in the air, a stillness that is absolute, like the space between a thunder and the sound that follows, and then Precious's knees give way. She drops. Precious, Prosper lunges and catches her before she hits the ground. He is on his knees with her in his arms, her body completely limp. Precious, Precious. Pearl rushes forward. Patience runs inside for water. The brothers crowd in, all the stillness of a moment ago exploding into noise and movement. Then Precious opens her eyes. She blinks. She looks up at Prosper's face above her. She looks confused. "What happened?" she says. Her voice is just hers, only hers. The weight is gone completely, like a coat someone has taken off and walked away with. "You fell," Prosper says. He is still holding her, his hands not quite steady. "I fell." She looks around at all the faces. At the brothers, the wives, the parcels still in some of their hands. At Victoria, frozen in her doorway like a woman who has seen something that cannot be unseen. Precious's brow creases. "What is going on? Why is everyone looking at me like that?" Prosper looks at his wife's face carefully. Whatever was there is gone. She is just Precious. She does not remember any of it. "It is okay," he says quietly. "It is over. I will explain later." He helps her to her feet. She leans on him, still blinking like someone waking from a deep sleep. He guides her toward their room. At the door, he looks back at his brothers, at the wives, and finally at his mother still standing in her doorframe. He does not say anything. He goes inside. Victoria stands alone in her doorway for a long time. The compound is quiet around her. The sons take their parcels and go inside with their wives. Nobody comes back out to speak to her. Nobody knocks on her door that evening. The table where she has sat at the head for 15 years is empty. She goes to her room. She sits on her bed. And for the first time in 30 years, she allows herself to fully remember Blossom, not the version she had buried and made small. The real one, the small woman who brought gifts, who loved her son, who lay in a clinic 4 hours away listening for footsteps, who got promises instead of presents, who died with those promises still sitting on her chest, unfulfilled, until she found somewhere else to put them. They were not gone, they were just waiting. One by one, her sons leave. Pascal and Pearl go on a Friday. Before they drive out, Pearl stops at Victoria's door alone. She stands in the doorway and says, "Ma, I told Pascal everything, about the baby, about the powder under the mattress, about the money. I should have told him years ago, but I was too afraid. I kept thinking if I was just patient enough, just small enough, just quiet enough, eventually you would see me as a person." She pauses. Her eyes are dry. She is past crying. "I needed someone in this house to fight for me, Ma. I waited 5 years. It took somebody else to do it." She picks up her bag. She walks out. Praise and Patience leave on Tuesday before sunrise. Victoria knocks on their door that morning and finds it open, the room empty, a folded note on the bare mattress. It says, "We will call, Mama. We wish things had been different." Victoria stands in the empty room for a long time holding the note. She reads it 3 times. She folds it and puts it in her pocket. Promise and Purity leave on Saturday. Promise comes to Victoria's room first and sits down. He is the most like Paul, their father, of all the sons, the same quietness, the same patience. He sits across from her and says, "I love you, Mama. I want you to know that has not changed." Victoria says, "Then stay." Promise shakes his head. He says, "I chose Purity in front of God and family, and I did not protect her in this house the way I should have. I have to fix that." He stands. He hugs her once, briefly and tightly. Then he picks up his bag and walks out. Prosper and Precious are last. The morning they leave, Prosper comes to Victoria's room alone and sits in the chair beside her bed, just like he used to sit as a small boy when he could not sleep. For a while they are both quiet. Prosper says, "Why, Mama? We were always going to be here. We were never going to leave you. Why was that never enough?" Victoria looks at her last born. She thinks about the explanations she has carried for years, the sacrifices, the love, the fear that if she did not hold tightly enough everything would slip away. She opens her mouth. She closes it. She cannot make any of it sound true in front of this face. "I was afraid," she says. It is the smallest sentence and the truest. "Of what?" "That you would all go, that I would have nothing left, that I would end up," she stops herself. "End up like who?" Prosper asks quietly. She does not answer. Prosper sits with her a moment longer, then he squeezes her hand once. He says, "I will call you, Mama." He stands, picks up the last bag, and walks out of the room. The gate closes. The compound is silent. Victoria cooks for 9 that first evening out of habit. She covers the pots and sits at the table and looks at the plates she has set without thinking. She counts them. 9. She sits with them for a long time. Then she puts 8 away and eats alone. She calls her sons. Pascal picks up and says he will visit. He does not visit. Praise does not answer. Promise picks up, asks if she is okay, says he has to go. Prosper picks up every time. He asks how she is. He says he will try to come. He comes once on a Wednesday evening, brings food, sits with her for an hour. Before he leaves, he says, "Come and stay with us, Mama, just until you are well." Victoria says no. She says it before he finishes the sentence. Prosper stands at her door and looks at her for a long moment. He says, "Okay, Mama." He leaves. That is the last time he comes. She gets sick in the 3rd month. A heaviness in her body that the clinic cannot explain clearly. She lies in the big empty house and feels the silence pressing down on her from every direction. She thinks about going back to the market woman, but the room is padlocked and nobody knows where the old woman went. She gets worse. She stops cooking. She stops opening the curtains. She thinks about Blossom in the clinic. She thinks about Paul, their father. She thinks about the compound full of voices and cooking smells, and how she had held it all so tightly that when it finally slipped from her hands, there was nothing left underneath. On a Wednesday afternoon, in the 6th month of living completely alone, Victoria dies. She is found 3 days later when the neighbor climbs the fence because the compound has been too quiet for too long. Her sons make arrangements through phone calls and messages. They send money. None of them come to stand at the grave. She is buried quietly, attended by 2 neighbors and a pastor who reads the words he is paid to read. The compound is sold the following year to a young couple who fill it with flowers and laughter, and the sound of people who are there because they choose to be. Some doors, once you lock people behind them, cannot be locked forever. The day will come when they open, and when they do, you had better hope you built something worth staying for.